The Founding Fathers created this country, carefully crafting a blueprint for a land of justice and prosperity, in our idealized collective imagination at least. Even though the definition of the American dream is elusive, almost everyone agrees that it isn't accessible for everyone. And for me, that begs a few questions. What does the American dream mean in a land where it's available for increasingly few? Why do we believe in it? Is this our dream in the first place, or is it a manipulative concept that it's time to wake up from? With that said, let's go for a few case studies of American dream gone wrong, starting with Jay Gatsby, a perfect example of someone whose dream was influenced by societal expectations. He started out with an extraordinary drive to become somebody, even if he was a bit insane, just a bit. But while serving in World War One, he meets and falls in love with Daisy Faye, thinking she's extraordinary. Why? True love, I guess? But he isn't wealthy enough at the time, and he isn't able to keep her. And the next time they meet, almost a decade later, she is Daisy Buchanan. Instead of letting bygones be bygones, he obsessively pursues this lost love as a holy grail, submerging himself in dirty money in order to see her again and win her from her husband. We find that the reason he loved her wasn't so special at all. Later on, he remarks that her voice is full of money, making clear to the reader and the narrator Nick that what he loved about Daisy was that she radiated wealth and high social class, about as shallow as her character ended up being. And for this lost love, he threw away everything noble about himself. Another source that connects to having one's dream tainted by something unnatural is Pink Floyd's Welcome to the Machine, wherein the lyrics reveal that the subject of the song, the main character, who became a cool rock star, was just following a dream that was manufactured for them by society or the machine. While he seemed to be following his heart, Gatsby traded his honest aspirations and work ethic for something superficial, his heroes for gold, gilded gold. And I have to mention that while The Great Gatsby, in Nick's perspective, romanticizes this obsession a bit, and that's a whole nother discussion, personally I'd heed the implied pragmatic advice of the book and not throw yourself away for an empty dream. I mean, for all his passion, he had no net positive effect on society, which he could have done, so. People who don't fit the expectation of high-born rich people are often tempted by the siren's song, just like poor, poor rich Gatsby. But Americans born into status and wealth, or people who fit most societal expectations, are often still unable to find happiness and success. While not everyone who fits societal norms is completely unfulfilled, neither are they completely comfortable with themselves either, due to the power and privilege that they have. Personally, I find that even though I generally fit into certain societal norms, I'm definitely not immune to insecurity. Like, when I engage in any competitive or creative activity, like tennis, for example, I constantly compare myself negatively to others, to the point that my fear of eternal mediocrity affects my motivation to do anything at all. And sometimes, and oftentimes, insecurity comes from expectation. Because my parents were this or that, why shouldn't I be the same? This line of thinking, or a similar one contrasting expectation with reality, applies to not just me, but millions of people in America who aren't able to come in terms with the disparity. Tom Buchanan is another example of insecurity affecting one's character. Despite him being born into status and wealth and experiencing what many would consider success in his college football career a decade past, one would hardly call him fulfilled. The decadence of the American dream makes him even more desperate to recapture a bit of his former glory. He cheats on his wife a lot and finds comfort in the wonders of modern science, namely social Darwinism, to distract himself from the fact that the peak of his life had come and gone. Tom is living the American dream and he has no idea what to do with it or himself. Along with being unfulfilled, Tom and his wife Daisy, though they fit societal norms, use their power irresponsibly, which ends up causing the deaths of George Wilson, his wife Myrtle Wilson, and Jay Gatsby. Okay, so a lot happens, and Tom basically chooses to mislead George into killing Gatsby for things that he didn't do, like cuckolding him and killing his wife, but rather what Tom and Daisy did respectively. Nick summarized this well, saying that he couldn't forgive him or even like him, but also saw that from Tom's perspective, what he did was perfectly justified, and after their careless actions, they had nothing to do but retreat to their wealth and vast carelessness. Effectively, Nick suggests that filthy rich people, like Tom and Daisy, can't help but be careless due to their wealth, using their power how they see fit and free of consequence to themselves, or to free themselves of consequence. And such behavior, though unintentionally, just enforces social norms by causality. Regardless of whether people are accepted by society, they will still use their powers in ways that perpetuate existing societal norms. In the case of Big Nurse, the nurses in the Black Boys in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, they exercise their power abusively because they are downtrodden and neurotic. In yours truly, The Land of the Free, women were historically demeaned and discriminated against in the 20th century and had fewer rights, if to a lesser degree than African Americans. These characters channeled their spite from this treatment, using their power to enforce restrictive societal norms of sanity on the men of the ward, supposedly for the greater good of society, but in reality just causing unnecessary grief. So, the powerful abuse their power. Big surprise, right? And what about those who are powerless in America? The article Why Are Americans Dying of Despair by The New Yorker explores the psychological effect of American society on the less fortunate. It suggests the attitude of American culture that casts aside people who are not successful or self-sufficient has a detrimental effect on those typically without the resources to achieve that standard. Even if we don't directly put down people we perceive as unsuccessful, we show it with our relative ambivalence toward billionaires who trample over millions for what we still categorize as success, while unthinkingly feeding from their silver spoon. The American dream, as we perceive it, is colored by societal expectations, for example, neurotypicality, material wealth, social class, etc. Those who don't fit those expectations are less likely to experience happiness or have success in the first place, chasing an American dream that isn't their own. And even those who fit those expectations are often unfulfilled due to their ignorance and conformity. And those who have power, whether or not they fit those expectations, perpetuate and enforce them in order to justify themselves. Effectively, it's a tool of oppression that hurts those who pursue it, and even those we think have achieved it, and it makes us powerless to actuate real and necessary social change. It's a product and service that